It was supposed to be a normal drive, just another long night on the highway, the kind that blends into every other night when you spend your life behind the wheel of a truck. But somewhere around 2 in the morning, I took a road that I wish I had never seen, because that road didn't just show me accidents. It showed me the future, and at the end of it, I saw my own crash. I've been driving trucks for almost 12 years, and in that time you learn a few things about the road. You learn how to stay awake when your body is begging for sleep. You learn which gas stations have the best coffee. And you learn that strange things happen late at night when the highways are empty and the world feels like it belongs only to you. But nothing in those 12 years prepared me for that night. I was hauling a refrigerated trailer through a stretch of highway that cuts through miles of forest. It's the kind of road where there are no towns, no lights, and no traffic for long stretches. Just trees, asphalt, and the sound of your engine humming through the darkness. My GPS told me I still had another 3 hours before the next stop. The sky was completely black, the moon hidden behind thick clouds, and the fog had started creeping in from the fields beside the road. At first, it was just thin streaks drifting across the asphalt, but the farther I drove, the thicker it got, until the world outside my headlights looked like a wall of pale gray smoke. I slowed down a little. Driving a 40-ton truck through fog isn't something you take lightly. The beams from my headlights stretched out in front of me, glowing against the mist, and everything beyond that was just darkness. The road felt empty in a way that was almost unnatural. No cars coming the other way, no taillights ahead of me, not even the distant glow of a town on the horizon. Just me and the engine and the long black ribbon of highway disappearing into fog. I remember thinking how strange it was that my radio had gone completely silent. I'd been listening to some late-night talk show earlier, but at some point the signal had faded into static. I reached over and twisted the dial, scanning through stations, but every frequency was just white noise. It was the kind of silence that makes you aware of every small sound in the cab. The low rumble of the engine, the faint creak of the trailer behind me, my own breathing. I kept driving, watching the road carefully, when suddenly something appeared in the beam of my headlights. I tapped the brakes instinctively. It was a car, a small sedan sitting on the shoulder of the highway. At first glance, it looked like a normal breakdown, the kind you see all the time on long roads like this. But as I got closer, I realized something was wrong. The front of the car was crushed inward like it had slammed into something at high speed. The windshield was shattered and the hood was bent upward, exposing the dark metal underneath. It wasn't just a breakdown, it was a crash. I slowed my truck and rolled past it carefully. The strange thing was there was no one around. No flashing hazard lights, no police, no ambulance, no driver standing on the side of the road waiting for help. Just the wrecked car sitting alone in the fog. I glanced in my mirror as I passed it, expecting to see someone walking out of the mist, but the road behind me was completely empty. I remember thinking it must have happened earlier and someone had already been taken away. That kind of thing happens sometimes on quiet highways. Tow trucks don't always get there right away, so I kept driving. But about 10 minutes later, my headlights caught another shape ahead on the shoulder. Another car. I slowed down again, my hands tightening slightly on the steering wheel. This one was worse. The entire passenger side had been crushed like it had been hit by something enormous. The side windows were gone and the metal frame was twisted into sharp angles. I drove past it slowly, leaning forward in my seat to get a better look. And again, there was no one there. No driver. No passengers. Nothing. Just an empty wreck sitting in the fog like it had been abandoned. That was when I started to feel uneasy. 2 crashes within 10 minutes on an empty road didn't make much sense. And both of them completely deserted. The fog seemed thicker now, swirling through the beams of my headlights, and the forest on both sides of the highway looked like a wall of black shadows. I tried to tell myself it was just coincidence. Maybe there had been a pileup earlier. Maybe the authorities had already come through and taken the injured drivers away. But something about the scene didn't feel right. The cars didn't look old or rusted like they had been sitting there for days. The metal still looked fresh. The broken glass scattered across the asphalt like it had only recently shattered. I drove another mile before I saw the third one. This time the car was sitting partly on the road itself, angled toward the ditch like it had spun out of control. I had to slow almost to a stop to maneuver my truck around it. As I passed, my headlights illuminated the interior through the broken window. The driver's seat was empty, but lying on the seat beside it was a smartphone. The screen was still on, glowing faintly in the darkness. That detail stuck with me. If someone had been in an accident bad enough to destroy their car like that, they wouldn't just leave their phone behind. I kept watching the mirror after I passed it, the small glowing rectangle fading into the fog behind me. My chest felt tight now, the way it does when something about a situation doesn't add up. And then, about another mile down the road, I saw a fourth crash waiting for me in the mist. The fourth car was different from the others. I could tell that even before my truck got close enough for the headlights to fully reach it. It wasn't sitting on the shoulder like the others. It was half on the road, half in the ditch, tilted at an awkward angle like it had spun out and slammed sideways into the dirt. I slowed down even more this time, my foot hovering over the brake as the fog rolled through the beams of light in front of me. The closer I got, the more details appeared. The rear door was open. One of the tires had completely blown out and the rim was bent inward. The windshield had a spiderweb crack running across the entire surface. But again, there was no one around. No driver, no passengers, just the wrecked car sitting there silently like the others. I drove past slowly, leaning forward again to see inside, and that's when I noticed something lying on the road beside the open door. A backpack. It looked like it had been thrown out during the crash. For a moment, I considered stopping. It's something most truck drivers would do in a situation like that, especially if the accident looked recent. But something deep in my gut told me not to. The fog was thick now, so thick that everything beyond 50 yards looked like it was fading into nothing. And the road ahead felt wrong in a way I couldn't explain. So I kept driving. My hands stayed tight on the wheel as the truck rolled forward through the mist. The engine hummed steadily beneath me and the trailer rattled softly behind the cab. The minutes stretched out longer than they should have. My eyes kept scanning the road ahead, half expecting another wreck to appear in the fog. And eventually it did. The fifth car was further down the highway, almost hidden in the ditch. This one had rolled completely onto its roof. The wheels were pointing upward and the entire roof had collapsed inward like a crushed can. I slowed again, feeling the uneasiness in my chest growing heavier. 5 crashes, all on the same road, all with no drivers anywhere in sight. As I passed the overturned car, something caught my eye through the shattered side window. There was a jacket draped across the back seat. A dark blue jacket with a reflective strip across the shoulders. I felt a strange chill when I saw it because it looked exactly like the kind of jacket drivers from my company wear. For a second, I almost convinced myself it actually was one of ours. But the fog swallowed the wreck in my mirror before I could get a better look. I kept driving, trying to focus on the road ahead, but my mind kept circling the same thought. Why were there so many accidents on this one stretch of highway? And where was everyone who had been inside those cars? After another mile or two, the road curved slightly to the right, disappearing deeper into the fog. The forest on both sides looked darker now, the trees taller and closer to the asphalt like they were leaning toward the road. I adjusted my grip on the wheel and leaned forward slightly, trying to see further ahead. That was when my headlights hit something new. At first it looked like a piece of debris lying across the shoulder. But as the truck got closer, I realized it was another vehicle. This time it wasn't a car. It was a pickup truck. The front of it had slammed directly into the guardrail. The metal rail had punched halfway through the engine compartment and bent around the hood like a twisted ribbon. I slowed almost to a crawl as I approached it, and this time something felt even more wrong than before. The pickup didn't look old or abandoned. The engine was still smoking. Thin wisps of gray vapor were rising from the crushed hood and drifting into the fog. That meant the crash had happened recently. Maybe minutes ago. My heart started beating faster. I eased the truck closer and looked inside the cab through the shattered window. The driver's seat was empty, but the seatbelt was still fastened. I stared at it for a moment, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The belt was stretched across the seat like someone had just unbuckled it and stepped out. But there was no one standing nearby. No footprints in the dirt. No sign that anyone had walked away from the crash. Just the smoking engine and the empty seat. I pulled my truck past the wreck and kept watching my mirrors again. The fog swallowed the pickup almost instantly, and for a moment the road ahead was completely empty once more. I tried to calm myself down. Maybe someone had already come through here and picked up the drivers. Maybe emergency crews had cleared the road and taken the injured away. But the more I thought about it, the less sense it made. Because every crash looked newer than the last. The first cars had looked old and cold, like they'd been sitting there for hours. But the pickup had still been smoking. That meant something else was happening. Something I didn't understand yet. I drove another mile through the fog before the next wreck appeared. And this time, the moment I saw it, a cold wave ran through my entire body. Because the vehicle sitting on the shoulder ahead of me wasn't a car. It was a truck. A semi-truck. Just like mine. And as my headlights moved across the side of the trailer, I saw a logo painted on the metal that made my stomach drop. It was the logo of the company I worked for. My foot slowly lifted off the accelerator as the truck rolled closer through the fog. The beam from my headlights slid across the side of the trailer, lighting up the logo more clearly. The same blue lettering, the same faded stripe along the bottom of the trailer. My company's name stretched across the metal exactly the way it looked on my own rig. For a second, I actually checked my mirrors to make sure my own trailer was still behind me. It was. The refrigeration unit hummed steadily, and the outline of my trailer was visible in the dim reflection of the side mirror. But the truck ahead of me was definitely from the same company. And it was definitely wrecked. The cab had slammed into the guardrail at an angle, the front bumper completely crushed and the hood bent upward like twisted metal paper. One of the front wheels had snapped off entirely and was lying several feet away in the ditch. I slowed down to almost walking speed as I approached it. The fog curled around the wreck like smoke from a fire, drifting slowly across the road. My headlights illuminated the cab interior through the shattered windshield. The seat looked empty at first, but then I noticed something on the ground beside the truck. A shape lying on the asphalt near the driver's door. My chest tightened as I realized what it was. A jacket. A dark blue driver's jacket with reflective stripes. The exact same style my company issued to all of us. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. I'd been seeing strange things on the road for the past 20 minutes. But this was the first moment when the situation felt personal. This wasn't just random wrecks anymore. This was someone from my company. Someone who drove the same highways I did. Someone who might have been on the same dispatch routes as me. I rolled past the wreck slowly, staring at the cab as it drifted through the beam of my headlights. The driver's seat was empty. The steering wheel was bent at an awkward angle from the impact. A few papers were scattered across the dashboard like they had been thrown around during the crash. But there was no driver, no body, nothing. Just the crushed truck and the abandoned jacket on the ground beside it. My heart was pounding now. I kept driving, but my eyes stayed glued to the mirrors long after the wreck disappeared into the fog behind me. The highway ahead felt darker than before. The fog seemed heavier, almost glowing in the headlights as the truck pushed forward through it. I tried to focus on my breathing and keep my mind steady. Accidents happen on the road. Truck drivers know that better than anyone. But the deeper I went down that highway, the more it felt like something was building. Like each wreck was leading to something further ahead. Another mile passed, then another. For a short stretch, there were no crashes at all. Just empty road and thick fog pressing against the windshield. The silence inside the cab felt louder now. The radio was still nothing but static. The GPS screen glowed faintly on the dashboard, showing the thin blue line of the highway cutting through a blank gray map. That was when something strange caught my attention. I glanced down at the GPS again. The road ahead was supposed to continue straight for another 20 miles before the next exit. But the map was starting to behave strangely. The blue line that represented my route was flickering slightly. I leaned closer, squinting at the screen. At first I thought it was just a signal problem. GPS units sometimes lose connection in remote areas. But then I noticed something else. A small gray icon had appeared further down the road. an icon that usually represents a traffic incident. I frowned and tapped the screen lightly. Another icon appeared, then another, then another. Within seconds, the road ahead was covered with tiny gray markers scattered along the highway like dots, each one representing an accident. My stomach twisted as I stared at the screen. The icons weren't random. They were spaced out along the road at the exact same intervals as the wrecks I had just passed. One marker behind me for each crash, and dozens more stretching far ahead into the fog. The GPS was showing accident after accident after accident, all along this same stretch of highway. I slowly lifted my eyes from the screen and looked back at the road ahead. The fog rolled quietly across the asphalt. My headlights cut through it in long glowing beams, and far in the distance, barely visible through the mist, I saw the outline of another wreck waiting for me on the side of the road. But this one looked different from the others. Much bigger, much worse. Even from far away, I could see pieces of metal scattered across the asphalt. Debris spread across both lanes like the aftermath of a violent collision. I felt a heavy knot form in my stomach as the truck moved closer. The fog shifted slowly, revealing more details little by little. The wreck ahead wasn't a car. It wasn't a pickup. It was another semi-truck. And the moment my headlights hit the side of the cab, something about it made my hands tighten around the steering wheel. Because the color of the paint, the shape of the grille, the pattern of the scratches along the door, all of it looked strangely familiar. The closer I got, the stronger that feeling became. That uncomfortable sense that I had seen this truck before. My headlights slid slowly across the side of the cab as the fog shifted in the wind. The paint was a dark gray, almost black under the night sky. The front of the truck had been completely crushed inward like it had slammed into something at full speed. The trailer behind it was twisted at a sharp angle across the shoulder, its rear wheels half buried in the dirt. I eased off the accelerator again, letting the truck roll forward slowly. Something about the wreck was pulling my attention in a way that made it hard to look anywhere else. The longer I stared at it, the more small details started to stand out. A dent on the driver's side door, a long scratch running along the fuel tank, a faded sticker near the bottom of the windshield. My chest tightened, because those weren't just random marks. Those were the same marks on my truck. I knew them because I had been looking at them for months. The dent came from a loading dock in Missouri where a forklift had clipped my door. The scratch along the fuel tank happened during a tight turn at a truck stop in Texas. Even the small sticker near the windshield had a story behind it. I had put it there myself after my first year on the job. The truck sitting wrecked in the fog ahead of me looked exactly like mine. My hands slowly tightened on the steering wheel. The engine of my truck continued to rumble steadily beneath me, the sound vibrating through the cab like a constant reminder that I was still moving forward, still driving, still approaching that wreck. I told myself it couldn't be the same truck. That was impossible. My truck was right here. I was sitting inside it. I could feel the wheel under my hands and the vibration of the engine through the pedals. But as the headlights illuminated more of the wreck, the resemblance became harder to ignore. The trailer attached to the truck was the same model as mine. The refrigeration unit mounted on the front looked identical. Even the pattern of dirt along the side panels matched the way road grime usually built up on my own trailer after a long haul. I slowed to almost a complete stop now. The fog drifted across the highway like slow-moving smoke, revealing and hiding pieces of the wreck every few seconds. And then my headlights reached the back of the trailer. I felt my stomach drop the moment I saw the number painted on the metal door. It was my trailer number, the exact same number that was printed on the back of the trailer behind me. For a moment, my brain refused to process what I was looking at. I instinctively checked the mirror again, half expecting to see that my own trailer had somehow vanished. But it was still there, following behind my cab exactly the way it should. The refrigeration unit hummed quietly, and the white metal doors reflected a faint glow from my brake lights. So how could the exact same trailer be sitting wrecked in front of me? I forced myself to breathe slowly and eased the truck forward a few more feet. My headlights now fully illuminated the cab of the wrecked truck. The windshield was shattered, the glass completely blown out from the frame. The driver's side door hung open at an angle, swaying slightly in the wind that moved through the fog. I stared at the interior through the broken window. The steering wheel was bent inward from the impact. Papers were scattered across the dashboard and floor. A coffee cup had rolled into the corner of the cab near the passenger seat. And then I saw something lying on the ground just outside the open door. At first, when I noticed something else, something that made the air in my lungs feel suddenly heavy. The driver's seat inside the wreck wasn't empty. There was someone sitting there, a dark silhouette slumped forward slightly over the steering wheel. My foot moved instinctively to the brake pedal, bringing the truck to a complete stop in the middle of the road. The fog drifted slowly through the beams of my headlights, casting pale light across the broken glass and twisted metal of the wreck. The figure inside the cab didn't move. It just sat there in the seat, head tilted downward like someone who had fallen asleep at the wheel. My heart was pounding now, loud enough that I could hear it over the rumble of the engine. I stared at the silhouette, trying to make out the details of the person sitting there. The shape of the shoulders looked familiar. The posture looked familiar too. Slowly, very slowly, the figure inside the wrecked truck lifted its head. And when the light from my headlights finally reached its face, I felt every muscle in my body go completely still, because the person sitting inside that destroyed cab, looking back at me through the broken windshield, had my face. For a few seconds I couldn't breathe. I just sat there gripping the steering wheel, staring at the figure inside the wrecked cab while the engine of my truck idled in the darkness. The fog drifted slowly between us, curling through the beams of my headlights like pale smoke. The face inside the broken windshield was mine. Not just similar, not just someone who looked like me. It was exactly my face. Same beard, same scar above my eyebrow from a fall I had years ago. Same tired eyes staring back through the shattered glass. The figure in the wrecked truck didn't move. It just sat there behind the bent steering wheel, watching me. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. My first thought was that I had finally pushed myself too far. Too many long nights on the road. Too little sleep. Drivers talk about it sometimes. The way exhaustion can make you see things that aren't really there. Shadows on the road that look like people. Headlights that turn into strange shapes in the fog. But this wasn't a shadow. This wasn't some trick of the light. The more I stared at the figure in the cab, the clearer it became. The dashboard inside that wrecked truck was lit faintly by the glow of its dying electrical system. Enough light to see the face clearly. My face. The version of me sitting in that destroyed truck looked worse than I did. Pale. Still. There was dried blood running down the side of his forehead. One arm hung loosely across the steering wheel at a strange angle. But the eyes were open, and they were looking directly at me. I realized then that my truck was still idling in the middle of the road. The engine vibrated through the cab, the headlights shining directly into the wreck in front of me. I should have driven away. Every instinct I had as a driver told me to keep moving. Get off this road. Find the next exit. But I couldn't move. Something about that scene had locked my body in place. Slowly, I reached over and turned the engine off. The rumble of the truck faded into silence. The sudden quiet felt heavy in the fog. For a moment, the only sound left was the faint ticking of the cooling engine and the distant whisper of wind moving through the trees. I opened the driver's door. The cold night air poured into the cab immediately, carrying the damp smell of fog and wet asphalt. My boots hit the ground as I stepped down from the truck. The fog wrapped around me instantly, thick and cold. The wrecked truck sat about 30 yards ahead, silent and twisted in the pale glow of my headlights. I started walking toward it slowly. Every step felt strange, like I was moving through someone else's dream. The closer I got, the more real everything became. The shattered glass crunching under my boots. The sharp smell of burned rubber and hot metal. The dented hood of the truck rising like a broken wall in front of me. I reached the front of the wreck and stopped for a moment, staring at the crushed grille. The damage was worse up close. The entire front end had folded inward like the truck had hit something solid at full speed. The headlights were shattered, wires hanging out of the broken frame. The guardrail beside the road was bent sharply where the truck had slammed into it. I slowly walked around the front of the cab, my eyes lifting toward the broken windshield again. The figure inside was still there, still sitting behind the wheel, still watching me. I felt my chest tighten as I moved closer to the open door. The interior of the cab was illuminated by the weak glow of the dashboard lights. Papers were scattered everywhere. The seatbelt hung loose beside the seat, and the driver sitting behind the wheel looked exactly the way I remembered seeing him from the road. Exactly the way I looked. My hands were shaking slightly now as I reached the side of the cab and looked inside. Up close, there was no doubt anymore. The face staring back at me was mine. Same eyes, same beard, same small scar above the eyebrow. The dried blood on his forehead had run down across his cheek and onto the collar of the driver's jacket he was wearing. My jacket. I felt something cold settle in my stomach, because the jacket hanging behind my seat in my own truck was missing that exact reflective stripe on the shoulder. I had torn it months ago while climbing out of the cab. The jacket on the body inside the wreck had the same tear. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Me standing outside the cab, the other me sitting behind the wheel of the destroyed truck. Then slowly, the version of me inside the wreck lifted his hand. His fingers moved weakly across the bent steering wheel, and he pointed down the highway, past me, back toward the road I had been driving. I turned slowly and looked behind me. The fog stretched across the highway like a pale ocean. My truck sat where I had left it in the middle of the road, headlights cutting through the mist. And far beyond it, deeper in the fog, I began to see shapes moving in the darkness. At first I thought it was just the fog shifting across the highway. The mist was thick enough that it moved in slow waves, drifting through the beams of my headlights like pale smoke. But the longer I stared down the road, the more those shapes began to separate from the fog itself. They weren't part of the mist. They were inside it, moving slowly along the highway in my direction. My heart began to pound again as my eyes tried to focus on the distant silhouettes. There were several of them, dark shapes scattered across the road and the shoulder beyond my truck. For a moment my brain tried to convince me they were just more wrecked cars sitting along the highway like the ones I had passed earlier. But then one of the shapes moved. A pair of headlights flickered faintly in the distance, glowing through the fog like two pale eyes. Then another set of headlights appeared. Then another. One by one, they began to light up along the road behind my truck. Dozens of them, all facing in my direction. A cold feeling spread through my chest as I realized what I was looking at. The wrecks I had passed earlier weren't just sitting there anymore. The cars were on the road now, slowly emerging from the fog behind my truck, their headlights glowing weakly in the darkness. And they were moving. The vehicles crept forward along the highway in a slow, silent line. Some of them swerved slightly as they rolled over the cracked asphalt. Others drifted gently from one lane to the other like drivers who had fallen asleep at the wheel. But there were no drivers. Even from this distance, I could see the empty interiors through the glowing windshields. My breath caught in my throat as the realization settled over me. These were the same wrecked cars I had passed on the road behind me. The sedan with the crushed hood, the pickup with the smoking engine, the overturned car in the ditch, the truck from my company with the broken front axle. All of them were on the highway now, moving slowly forward through the fog, and they were heading straight toward me. I stood frozen beside the wrecked cab of my own truck as the silent convoy continued creeping forward. The fog swirled around their headlights, making the beams stretch across the road in long pale lines. The sound of their engines reached me a few seconds later, a low mechanical hum rising slowly out of the mist. It was the strangest sound I had ever heard. Dozens of engines running at once, but none of them were being driven by anyone. The vehicles moved like they were being pulled by something invisible, all of them rolling slowly along the highway in the same direction, toward the wreck where I stood. I turned back toward the cab of the destroyed truck beside me. The other version of me was still sitting behind the wheel, still watching the road behind my truck. His hand was still resting weakly on the steering wheel, the finger still pointing down the highway toward the approaching vehicles. Slowly, I looked back toward the road again. The headlights were closer now, I could see the shapes of the cars clearly through the fog as they rolled toward my truck. Some of them had smashed hoods. Others had broken windshields or missing doors. One of them was the overturned car I had seen earlier, somehow rolling forward on its roof with its crushed metal scraping against the asphalt. None of them stopped. None of them slowed. They just kept coming. A long line of wrecked vehicles crawling out of the fog like ghosts returning to the road. My stomach twisted as another thought suddenly hit me. These were the accidents the GPS had shown. Every crash along this stretch of highway. Every car that had ever been destroyed on this road. And now they were all moving again. Slowly, relentlessly, as if the road itself had brought them back to life. The first car in the line was only a few hundred feet away now. Its headlights flickered weakly as it rolled toward my truck sitting in the middle of the road. Behind it, the rest of the vehicles continued creeping forward through the fog, their lights stretching back into the darkness farther than I could see. And suddenly I understood why the other version of me had pointed down the highway. He wasn't pointing at the road ahead. He was pointing at what was coming behind me, because the convoy of wrecked vehicles wasn't just moving toward my truck. They were moving toward the exact spot where the destroyed version of my truck had crashed into the guardrail. The exact place where I was standing. The road wasn't showing me the future anymore. The future was already on its way, and it was coming closer with every second. I could feel the ground trembling slightly beneath my boots as the first wrecked car rolled closer, its headlights cutting through the fog like dull, ghostly eyes. The sedan's hood was bent almost completely over the engine, metal creaking with each turn of its wheels. I stumbled back instinctively, my breath coming fast and shallow. The sound of dozens of engines, all unmanned, all rolling forward in perfect synchronization, filled the night. There was a strange rhythm to it, like the road itself was breathing, pushing them toward me. I looked back toward my own truck, parked where I had left it, and saw it clearly now. Behind me, every single crash I had passed was converging into a line, following the faint path my headlights traced. The fog made it impossible to see the end of the line. It stretched back farther than my eyes could follow, like a never-ending procession. And then I noticed movement in one of the vehicles closest to me. The windshield wipers of a broken car started sweeping slowly across the glass as if powered by some invisible hand. Another truck's mirror swung sharply, creaking like a bone. And in the back of that pickup I had seen earlier, a dark silhouette shifted, just enough to make my stomach twist into knots. My own heartbeat drowned out everything else as I realized what was happening. This wasn't just a road of accidents. It wasn't just a line of wrecked vehicles coming to life. The road was trying to show me something, and what it was showing me was my own fate. I looked back at the semi-truck with my face, the destroyed cab. The other me was still sitting there, completely still, staring at the oncoming line of wrecks. I swallowed hard, my throat dry, and felt my hands shake. The trucks and cars were moving faster now, still slow enough that it felt deliberate, controlled, like the road itself was calculating every inch of their path. My eyes darted from one vehicle to the next, trying to track them all, but there were too many. Headlights, twisted metal, broken glass, scattered debris, all coming toward me with silent inevitability. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and burning rubber, though none of the engines were firing properly. It was unnatural, wrong. The first car was now only 50 feet away. I could see the jagged edges of its metal, the shattered interior, the seatbelts dangling uselessly. And then the semi with my face began to move as well. Its cab rocked slightly, the headlights flickering as though it was alive, aware. The face in the windshield didn't move at first, just stared, pale and unmoving. But then slowly, almost imperceptibly, it smiled. Not a friendly smile, not a recognition of me, but a knowing, dreadful smile, as if it understood that my presence here was no accident, that I had been led to this moment. My breath caught, my legs froze. The line of vehicles behind me stretched endlessly through the fog. I could hear a faint sound now, above the mechanical hum, a low, whispered noise coming from the mist. I didn't understand the words at first. It sounded like wind through trees, voices carried in static, But as I focused, I realized the whispering was forming into words. Names. My name. My friends' names. The names of drivers who had disappeared on this highway before me. And then I saw it. The truck with my own face leaning forward slightly in the cab, pointing at me. The other me raised a hand, then slowly pulled something from the seat. A device of some kind. A GPS. And on the screen, flickering faintly through the fog, were dozens of icons. Every wreck I had passed, every vehicle now moving behind me, all showing one final destination. My eyes widened in horror as I realized the line of wrecks was converging not just toward my truck, but toward me, toward the spot I had just stepped onto the asphalt. And then, in the faint glow of the fog, I saw it. A shadow stretching from the first car in line all the way back to the end of the highway. A black ribbon weaving between the headlights, growing darker, thicker, twisting around the vehicles like a living thing. The road itself was moving now, guiding them forward. And I was standing right in the middle of it. I stumbled back, my boots skidding on the wet asphalt as the first car rolled closer. The shadow that stretched along the highway seemed to pulse, almost breathing, twisting between the headlights of the approaching wrecks like some living thing feeding on the road itself. The wind howled through the trees lining the highway, carrying faint, distorted whispers that seemed to come from every direction at once. Names, cries, voices of drivers long gone, all blending into a low, unbearable chant. My chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs felt rooted to the asphalt. The semi with my face was now only a few feet away. Its headlights flickered weakly, casting eerie, broken light across the fog. I could see my reflection, or his, staring back at me through the shattered glass. And then, impossibly, the other me moved. Slowly, deliberately, he lifted his hand and pointed straight down the highway. I followed the direction of his finger and saw something that made my stomach drop. At the far end of the fog-streaked road, the wrecks ahead were forming a line that stretched to infinity, each vehicle a twisted echo of a crash I had passed, or a crash I had yet to survive. The weight of realization hit me like a punch. This road wasn't just showing accidents anymore. It was showing me my own fate, a timeline unfolding in real time. Every vehicle behind me, every shape emerging from the mist, was a reminder that I could not escape what was coming. The first car reached the edge of the shadow and seemed to hesitate, metal groaning. I thought maybe, just maybe, I had a chance to slip past, but then another vehicle emerged from the fog behind it, and another, and then the semi-truck, the one with my face, started moving as well. The wrecked vehicle rocked slightly, the headlights cutting through the fog in jagged lines. My reflection in the glass didn't just stare anymore. It smiled, a terrible, knowing grin that filled me with a sense of inevitability I couldn't shake. My body trembled. The line of vehicles was closing in faster now, still unnaturally slow, but steady. The shadow along the road stretched and twisted, reaching toward me, tendrils of darkness curling around the tires of the first few cars, dragging them forward. I could hear the low hum of engines mixed with whispers of my name, urging me forward into the unknown. My mind raced. I looked back at my own truck. It was still there, idling, humming softly in the fog, its headlights steady. But every instinct screamed that staying there wasn't safe. The road itself seemed alive, and it wanted something from me. And then I realized the other me in the wrecked semi wasn't just showing me the way. He was guiding me into the heart of this highway's secret, the point where all the accidents converged, where the timeline of crashes intersected with my own path. I took a shaky step back, my eyes locked on the line of vehicles closing in through the fog. My legs were weak, but I knew I had to move. The whispering voices grew louder, now almost shouting, a chorus of lost drivers warning me, calling my name, and at the same time, urging me forward. I swallowed hard, heart pounding, and took another step, my gaze fixed on the twisted shape of my own semi-truck in the fog. Every muscle in my body screamed to run, but I felt compelled to follow, drawn by the other me's pointing finger and the terrible knowledge that whatever was coming could not be escaped if I didn't act. The vehicles behind me moved faster now, the shadow stretching longer, wrapping around the tires and scraping along the asphalt. The air grew colder, dense with fog, metallic tangs of crushed metal and burnt rubber filling my nostrils. The whispering became a chorus of screams, each name I had ever heard on this highway blending together, urging me forward, pulling me into the endless line of wrecks that waited just ahead. I stepped forward cautiously, every nerve in my body screaming as my boots crunched against the cracked asphalt. The fog thickened, curling around the approaching wrecks like fingers reaching for me. I could hear the groan of twisted metal and the faint hum of engines that weren't being powered by anyone. Each vehicle moved forward as if drawn by some invisible force, a slow, unstoppable procession that filled the road behind me. My own truck sat where I had left it, engine humming faintly, lights steady. I glanced at it for guidance, for reassurance, but the reality of the road ahead swallowed any sense of safety. The semi with my face shifted slightly in the cab of the wrecked truck. Its hand rose, then fell in a deliberate motion, gesturing toward a narrow gap between the first two vehicles in the line. My heart thudded violently. It was like a path had opened, but only barely enough for me to move without being crushed. Every instinct screamed to stay away, to run in the opposite direction. But I knew if I froze here, I would be consumed. The fog swirled around my legs as I started forward, carefully placing each step on the asphalt, eyes fixed on the small opening. The first car rolled past, headlights flickering, scraping the edge of the shadow that stretched along the highway. Its tires ground softly against the cracked pavement. The shadow itself pulsed, curling around the wheels, tugging at the vehicle as if it were alive. I kept moving, shivering in the cold air, heart hammering in my chest. Behind me, the line of wrecked vehicles pressed forward, engines humming, metal groaning, shadows stretching and twisting across the asphalt. The whispers had grown into faint chants, repeating my name, the names of others who had driven this road and never returned, names I had only heard in news reports or rumors from fellow truckers. My footsteps echoed slightly in the fog as I followed the narrow gap between the first two cars. Every step felt deliberate, like I was moving through some nightmare where the rules of reality didn't apply. And then, from the cab of the wrecked semi with my face, I saw a motion I could barely comprehend. The figure raised both hands now, pointing straight ahead, toward the very center of the highway where the line of vehicles converged. I knew without thinking that this was where the road wanted me to go. Every wreck behind me, every shadow stretching across the asphalt, every whisper in the fog. It was all pulling me forward toward that one point, the heart of this highway's secret. I could see the shapes of the approaching cars and trucks bending slightly as if the road itself was shaping them to guide me. The shadow along the highway stretched like a living ribbon, curling and twisting, brushing against the tires and scraping across the hoods. I could feel it in the soles of my boots, cold and heavy, as though the road itself was aware of me, marking my passage, nudging me closer to something I didn't want to see but couldn't avoid. My pulse was deafening. I swallowed hard and forced myself to keep moving, following the faint instructions of the other me, toward the center of the road where the line of wrecks, the shadow, and the fog seemed to meet. Each step brought the metallic scent of crushed vehicles closer, mixed with the eerie smell of damp fog and something else, something metallic and sharp, like the echo of death itself. The other me in the wrecked cab remained motionless, watching, waiting, pointing, a guide through the nightmare that stretched out in front of me. And I knew, with every fiber of my being, that the moment I reached that point, everything on this road, the fog, the shadow, the moving wrecks, would reveal the truth of why I had been drawn here. I stepped closer to the center of the highway, each footfall echoing strangely in the thick fog. The line of wrecks behind me moved in perfect synchronization, a slow, inexorable tide of twisted metal and shattered glass. The semi with my face remained in the wreck ahead, its eyes, or my eyes, locked on me through the broken windshield. I felt as though the air itself had thickened, pressing against my chest, making each breath a conscious effort. The shadow along the road pulsed and twisted like a living thing, crawling toward the wrecks and wrapping around the tires like dark tendrils, dragging the cars forward with a force I could feel through the asphalt. A faint whisper ran through the fog, A single phrase repeated again and again. "You cannot escape." My hands shook as I took another step, my eyes scanning the advancing line of vehicles. Each one moved like it had a mind of its own, steering slightly, adjusting to keep the path open for me. It was as if the entire highway was alive, guiding me, forcing me towards something I didn't understand yet. My own truck sat behind me, idle, headlights cutting through the mist, engine humming softly, a small anchor of reality in this nightmare. I glanced at it and almost wanted to turn back, to climb inside and drive away. But the shadow stretching from the line of wrecks to the far side of the road told me there was no retreat. The gap between the first two vehicles was narrowing, the shadow curling like fingers reaching for me, urging me forward. Every instinct screamed to stop, to run in the opposite direction. But my legs moved on their own, drawn by some invisible force, as if the other me in the cab of the wrecked semi was pulling me forward through his gaze. I could see now that the center of the road, the point he had been pointing to, was marked by something unnatural. The fog swirled more violently there, curling upward like smoke from an invisible fire. And inside the swirl, I saw a faint shimmer, a twisted distortion of light that didn't belong in the darkness. The sound of the wrecked vehicles behind me grew louder, engines humming in eerie harmony, metal groaning and scraping asphalt. And in that moment, I realized the truth. The road wasn't just showing me the future. It was the future, and it had been waiting for me to arrive at this exact point. My heart pounded as I moved closer, the fog curling around my boots, the shadow reaching and twisting across the asphalt, the whispers of lost drivers rising into a chorus of warnings and demands. The other me leaned forward slightly in the wrecked cab, lifting a hand toward the shimmer at the center of the road. My stomach nodded. I knew that when I reached that spot, the line of wrecks, the shadow, the fog, and the figure in the semi, all of it would converge. And in that convergence, I would see why this highway had pulled me here, why every crash I had passed, every vehicle resurrected from past accidents, and every whisper had been guiding me toward this single, inevitable point. I stepped into the swirl of fog at the center of the highway, my boots sinking slightly into the damp asphalt, every sound amplified, the low hum of unmanned engines, the groan of twisted metal, the whispering chorus of names all around me. The line of wrecked vehicles closed in from both directions, their headlights piercing the mist like spectral eyes, illuminating fragments of shattered glass, bent fenders, and twisted steel. The shadow along the road writhed beneath them, curling around tires, sliding across broken hoods, pulsing with a slow, deliberate rhythm that seemed to match the pounding of my own heart. The air was cold and heavy, tasting of ozone and scorched metal, thick enough that it clung to my skin. The semi with my face sat at the edge of the fog, cab angled slightly, headlights dimmed, watching me. Slowly, impossibly, the figure lifted both hands and gestured forward. My legs moved of their own accord, drawn to the point of convergence ahead. Every instinct screamed danger, yet I could not stop. The fog swirled more violently as I drew closer, forming a tunnel of thick, curling mist that shrouded the scene in an almost otherworldly glow. Shapes of vehicles emerged through the haze, countless, overlapping, stretching farther than I could see, all pressing toward the center of the highway where I now stood. I could see the faint shimmer again, a strange distortion in the fog, like heat rising off the asphalt, but colder, darker, unnatural. The whispers grew louder, voices overlapping, forming a single, haunting chant. "You are the road now, you belong to it." My hands shook, sweat rolling down my back, as I finally noticed the shadow beneath me. It had grown, spreading across the asphalt, writhing like a living thing. Tendrils of blackness curled around my feet, tugging slightly, coaxing me closer toward the shimmer. My vision blurred, heart racing, yet I kept moving forward, unable to stop. The wrecked vehicles pressed in closer, moving silently, their headlights illuminating jagged shapes and broken glass, the smell of burning metal and rubber thick in the air. And then I saw it. At the center of the fog, the shimmer resolved into a figure, not entirely human, not entirely mechanical, something between the wrecks themselves and the highway. It was composed of twisted metal, glass, and shadow, shifting and writhing as if it were alive. Its face, or what resembled a face, was pale, reflective, and horrifyingly familiar. It was mine, and not just mine. The faces of every driver who had vanished on this highway for decades flickered across its surface, screaming silently, trapped in the form of this monstrous entity that had been waiting for me at the heart of the road. The whispers became a deafening roar in my mind, 1,000 voices all chanting my name, my own thoughts echoing back to me in terror. Every instinct screamed to run, to fight, to turn and escape, but I could not move. The other me in the wrecked semi lifted a hand, pointing directly at the entity, and I understood with sickening clarity. This was what the highway had been building toward. This was what all the wrecks, the fog, the shadows, and the whispers had been guiding me to see. My body froze as the entity stretched upward, casting a darkness over the highway, tendrils of black metal and fog sweeping outward, consuming everything in its path. And in that instant, I realized that the line of wrecked vehicles, the shadow that had followed me, the fog itself, and even the other me, they were all part of it. They were extensions of the highway, pulling me into its impossible design, showing me my own reflection not as I was, but as I was meant to become. My chest heaved, every muscle trembling as I stared into the center of the road. The entity reached toward me, a mass of metal, shadow, and familiar faces, and the whispers became a single, commanding voice. No way out. The words hit me like a physical blow, a weight pressing down from every direction. No way out. My knees buckled slightly as the black tendrils of the shadow snaked around my boots, cold and unyielding. The wrecked vehicles behind me continued their slow advance, engines humming in unnatural harmony, tires scraping against the asphalt, the shadow threading between them like veins of darkness. My hands reached instinctively for my truck, for anything familiar, but my own rig seemed impossibly far now, swallowed by the fog that swirled and thickened with every passing second. The semi with my face in the wrecked cab leaned forward, tilting slightly, as if urging me to move closer. Its hand extended, pointing directly at the heart of the fog where the entity waited. My mind screamed to stop, to turn, to flee, but my feet refused to obey, drawn forward by some invisible pull. The shimmer at the center of the highway grew brighter, pulsating with a sickly, unnatural light that reflected off the twisted metal of the approaching wrecks. Faces appeared and vanished in the fog. Faces I recognized. Colleagues, drivers I had spoken to on CB radio, even a few long-forgotten names I had read about in accident reports. Their mouths moved in silent screams, eyes locked on me, pleading, warning, condemning. And then I saw movement in the entity itself. What I had thought was a single mass of shadow and metal was shifting, reshaping, taking on the appearance of a massive semi-truck, but fused with every wreck I had passed. The hood bent in impossible ways, wheels twisted and half-melted, glass reflecting flashes of the fog like pale eyes. And on its windshield, staring back at me, was my face again, but distorted. Hollow eyes, stretched in agony, twisted into a silent scream I could almost hear. I felt a tremor run through my body, cold sweat soaking my shirt. The shadow under my feet was growing, coiling up my legs, and I could feel it tugging at me, urging me forward into the entity, into the heart of the highway itself. I wanted to resist, to fight, to run, but the pull was too strong. Every instinct I had as a driver, as a human, screamed that moving forward meant certain death, but standing still meant being swallowed by the fog, lost forever in the whispering voices. The other me in the wrecked semi moved again, slowly lifting the GPS from the seat. The screen flickered, showing the map of the highway, every wreck lined up perfectly, the end point glowing like a red dot pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. And then it clicked, the highway wasn't just a road. It wasn't just a series of accidents. It was a trap, a loop, a living timeline designed to pull drivers in, collect them, and merge them into this entity. Every crash I had passed was a collection of what had come before, and now I was being added to the center of it. My breath caught, and I took another step forward, the tendrils of shadow curling tighter around my boots. The wrecked vehicles closed in from behind and ahead, a corridor of twisted metal and fog. The whispers rose to a roar in my mind, voices overlapping, screaming, chanting, commanding. You belong, you belong, you belong. I tried to shout, tried to pull back, but no sound came out. The fog wrapped around me, thick and suffocating, and I could feel the cold presence of the entity reaching closer, each pulse of its unnatural light reflecting fragments of my face across the twisted metal of the approaching wrecks. And in that moment, I realized there was no escape, no highway exit, no alternate route, no miracle to save me. I was at the center of it, at the heart of the road's design, and it was waiting for me to step fully into its fold, to become part of the endless procession, part of the whispering chorus, part of the nightmare that had collected every driver who had vanished here before me. The first tendril of black shadow slid up my leg. I could feel its cold bite against my skin, drawing me forward, pulling me toward the entity, toward the light, toward the impossible. Fusion of metal, fog, and faces that awaited. My heart thundered in my chest. My mind screamed in terror, and yet I kept moving, unable to resist, drawn forward by the inevitable, by the highway itself, by the truth that I had finally reached the point where the road collected its victims. And as I stepped fully into the center, into the fog, into the waiting arms of the entity, I realized the final truth, whispered through the chorus of voices and the pulsing shadow. There was no way out. As I fully entered the center of the highway, the fog closed around me like a living curtain. The tendrils of shadow wrapped higher, coiling around my legs, my torso, tugging me closer to the entity. The whispers had become a deafening roar, voices overlapping in a chaotic symphony. The names of drivers lost here, mine, and countless others merging into a single, terrifying chant. The wrecked vehicles on either side of me moved in perfect synchronization, circling slowly, their headlights flashing off twisted metal, broken glass, and jagged shadows. I could see the distorted faces of other drivers in each windshield, pale and hollow, mouths frozen in silent screams, eyes locked on me. My heart was pounding so violently I thought it might burst, yet a strange, chilling calm washed over me at the same time. This was the highway's design, its purpose, and I could feel it pulling me into understanding, into the truth of what it was. A collector, a trap, a living highway that consumed anyone who wandered too far, anyone who became curious enough to follow its fog and accidents. The semi with my face, still slumped in its wrecked cab, lifted a hand again and pointed directly upward toward the pulsing shimmer of the entity. I followed its gaze and saw the mass of metal, shadow, and faces start to move, slowly reshaping itself, stretching upward like a dark tower, a fusion of twisted vehicles, distorted bodies, and my own reflection multiplied across it in impossible angles. I felt a pull from all directions now, the shadow twisting around me, the fog pressing in, the wrecks nudging me forward. I was being guided, forced, dragged toward the heart of the entity. My thoughts raced. Escape was impossible. Running meant entering deeper into the shadow. Standing still meant being swallowed by the fog. And yet, as terrifying as this realization was, a small, perverse part of my mind was fascinated. It wanted to see the center, the core, the heart of the highway's nightmare. I took another step, and then another, and the shadow tightened around me like an embrace, cold and unyielding. The whispers transformed into words I could understand, repeated in sync with the pulse of the entity. Join us, become part, belong to the road. The tendrils lifted me slightly off the asphalt, floating me closer to the shimmering center. I could feel every lost driver, every face, every vehicle I had passed along this cursed stretch, their memories and essences merging into a single consciousness within the entity. My reflection stared back at me from hundreds of broken mirrors and windshields, multiplied and distorted, each version screaming silently. And then, as I approached the very core, the fog parted slightly, revealing the heart of the entity itself. A swirling vortex of shadow, metal, and light, pulsing in rhythm with my racing heartbeat. The faces, my face included, formed a crown around it, staring, screaming, begging, warning, welcoming. The whispers became a chorus of my own thoughts, amplified. Fear, curiosity, disbelief, resignation. I could feel the pull stronger now, dragging me closer. My boots hovered above the asphalt, suspended between the twisted wrecks, the shadow, and the fog. The line of vehicles behind me continued to press forward, their engines humming, their shadows curling toward the entity. I realized, fully and with absolute certainty, that the highway had claimed me, that this was not a road to drive, but a road to join, to become part of the endless procession. The semi with my face in the wrecked cab gave a final motion, lowering its hand, eyes locked on mine, expression unchanged, knowing. And then I felt myself fully absorbed by the entity, pulled into the shimmer, into the core where metal, shadow, fog, and memory fused into a living nightmare. My consciousness stretched, my perception expanded, and I understood with bone-deep clarity why the highway existed. It was infinite, it was hungry, and it would never let go. The fog swallowed me completely as the entity's heart pulsed beneath me, a living fusion of twisted metal, shattered glass, and shadowed faces. The tendrils of darkness curled around my body, lifting me higher above the asphalt, dragging me closer to the center where the road itself seemed alive, breathing, pulsing, and waiting. The wrecked vehicles behind me pressed forward like obedient ghosts, engines humming in eerie harmony, headlights cutting through the fog in pale streaks of light. The whispers of lost drivers crescendoed into a deafening roar, voices of every soul who had vanished on this highway, merging into one single command: join us, belong to the road. My reflection appeared in every windshield, every twisted panel, every shard of broken glass. My face distorted, pale, screaming silently. The other me in the semi-truck lowered his hand, eyes fixed on mine, expression knowing and terrifying, a guide into the inevitable. And then the pull became irresistible. I was drawn into the core, the shimmer, the living heart of the highway, a vortex of shadow, metal, and memory that consumed me fully. Time and space fractured. I could feel every accident, every driver, every lost soul absorbed into the same endless procession, and now I was part of it. The whispers faded into silence, replaced by the eternal hum of the road itself, alive and watching. The fog rolled back into stillness. The wrecks lay motionless again, the headlights dim. Only the road remained, endless and hungry, waiting for the next driver who strayed too far, the next curious soul who thought they could navigate its twisted path. And I was gone. Another face among the countless trapped in the heart of the highway, my fate sealed, swallowed by the road that shows your future crash.